All right, so ready to dive in. Today we're all about, well, traveling safely in West and Southern Africa. You know, those of you listening are obviously interested in seeing these amazing places. And we've got some pretty interesting sources.
Yeah, we do.
We've got 10 essential safety tips for traveling in West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We've got this French article, Déguster la cuisine locale en toute sécurité, which I believe means
Discover local cuisine safely.
discover local cuisine safely.
Yes.
And then we've also got 18 South Africa safety travel tips you need to know by locals.
Ooh, straight from the source.
Straight from the source. The goal is to give you all the insider knowledge so that you can have a trip that is both amazing and safe.
Yeah, because you don't want to be thinking about safety the whole time. You want to enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
But also, it's good to be prepared.
Yeah, that's the balance.
One thing that struck me going through these sources was just how much emphasis there was on cultural respect, particularly in West Africa. And it's not even just about being polite. It's like literally a safety strategy.
That's so interesting. I was really surprised by that too. The 10 essential safety tips article, the West African one, had a really good point about greetings.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Like in Ghana, Togo, and Benin.
Interesting.
So apparently, a handshake is only the beginning, right?
Right.
You've got to show true respect, and I guess to avoid standing out in a bad way, you have to actually inquire about the person's family.
Yeah.
Like their well-being and the well-being of their family.
So it's about going that extra step and showing them that you're genuinely interested in more than just a transaction.
Right, like you're invested in them.
Yeah, you're invested in the community.
Wow.
And that automatically makes you less of a target for scams or just unwanted attention.
Interesting.
Because they see you as someone who's part of the fabric of the community in a way.
I never thought of it that way, but it makes perfect sense. Totally.
And so building those genuine connections is actually a key part of staying safe.
Yeah, and not just staying safe, but having a more enriching experience.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because you're actually connecting with people, not just, passing through.
Absolutely. And speaking of connecting, what about connecting with the local food?
Oh, yes, the food.
Which I am so excited about.
One of the best parts of traveling, right?
Yes. I mean, come on, the street food.
Oh, the street food.
But I want to make sure I'm doing that safely. So tell me, what stood out to you in that French article about eating safely?
Well, one thing they really emphasized was choosing busy vendors.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, as a sign of quality and freshness.
Because that means more turnover.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not sitting around for a long time.
Right, but what I thought was really interesting was their advice on navigating those local markets.
Ooh, yeah.
Where it can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah. So they recommend really observing how the locals interact with the vendors.
Okay.
Watching how they select their food, how they handle payments, even just the little nuances.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because that helps you not only understand the kind of unspoken etiquette.
Okay.
But it also prevents you from being overcharged or targeted as a tourist.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah, it's like learning by osmosis.
Yeah, you're just blending in.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got blending in, respecting local customs. I'm seeing this as a universal safety tip.
Yeah, it's like the golden rule of travel, right?
It is. It really is.
But I noticed that they gave some interesting region-specific advice too.
Oh, okay.
For example, in South Africa, they really cautioned against walking around city centers at night with valuables on display.
Yeah.
Especially jewelry.
I've heard that.
But in West Africa, it goes even beyond just valuables.
Oh, okay.
He talked about avoiding tourist clothes.
All right, now what does that even mean? I know, right? I don't want to pack the wrong thing.
Basically, anything that screams, I'm not from here.
Got it.
Think bright colors, flashy logos, cargo shorts, the kind of outfit you might see in a travel brochure.
Yeah, right.
But not, wouldn't see on a local.
Right.
It's all about fitting in and not drawing unnecessary attention to yourself.
Right. So it's a safety strategy.
Yeah, as much as a cultural consideration.
Okay, I will definitely pack with that in mind.
Good plan.
So we've covered blending in. Now tell me about getting around. What stood out to you about transportation, especially in West Africa?
Well, the safe travel practices section of that West African source, they highlighted taxis and moto taxis as the most common way to get around.
Yeah, I figured that.
And while they did mention, the obvious always wear a helmet.
Of course.
But they really emphasize the importance of negotiating fares up front.
Ooh, that's smart.
Yeah, because that avoids any, like, surprises or disagreements.
At the end?
Yeah, at the end of your ride.
Yeah.
Which, especially in areas where English isn't widely spoken, could be like a recipe for...
Trouble.
Yeah, trouble.
Yeah.
Miscommunication.
Right. Okay. And they also mentioned that travel times can be unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
So patience is key.
Yeah, like, don't have a super rigid schedule.
Right. Just go with the flow.
Because things might take longer than you expect.
Did you get the sense that getting around Southern Africa is a bit different?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
They pointed out that public transport can be a bit limited.
Okay.
Especially if you're venturing outside of, like, major cities.
I see.
So you might find yourself needing to, like, rent a car.
Road tripping through South Africa? I mean, that sounds amazing.
It is.
But what about safety?
Well, that's where it gets a bit more, serious. Because while they do encourage, driving to experience those, like, vast landscapes and everything,
Yeah.
they also stress, like, being extremely vigilant.
Oh, okay.
Especially at night.
Yeah.
And, I'll be honest, I even felt a little uneasy in Johannesburg, and I consider myself, like, a seasoned traveler.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So what made you feel safer there?
Honestly, having a local guide made a huge difference.
Okay.
They not only, like, knew the safest routes and areas, but they also provided just, like, invaluable insights into the local culture and customs.
Oh, so it wasn't even just about safety. It was about, like, enhancing your whole experience.
Yeah, it's amazing how having that local perspective can, like, completely transform your trip.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And that actually reminds me of something that we saw in both sources, which is this, like, that advice about relying on locals for advice.
Yes.
And it wasn't even just about, like, directions or things like that. It was about, like, tapping into, like, a whole network of knowledge.
Yes.
That tourists often miss.
It's like those little nuances that you wouldn't even think to ask about.
Yeah.
But they can, like, really, make or break your experience.
So it seems like locals are not just a source of information, but, like, a key part of the whole travel experience.
Absolutely.
And speaking of experiences, both sources had some really interesting tips for solo female travelers.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, especially, from your own experiences.
Well, one thing that really stood out to me was the West African source's emphasis on building a network.
Okay, yeah.
Even if it's online.
Yeah.
Like connecting with other travelers, joining online forums.
Right.
It can provide that sense of, like, community and support.
Yeah.
Even before you arrive.
Yeah, I see that.
And they even had, like, this practical tip about packing a toilet kit.
Okay.
For remote areas.
Oh, smart.
Which I was like, oh, yeah. Even as someone who's traveled a lot, that's something that, like, you don't always think about.
Yeah, you're so focused on, like, the big picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so I love that. And was there anything different about the Southern African perspective?
What I found really reassuring about the South African source was that they didn't, like, dwell on fear.
Yeah.
Okay. They acknowledged, like, the unique concerns.
Right.
But they really emphasize that solo female travel in Africa is totally possible.
Okay, yeah.
And incredibly rewarding.
As long as you're well prepared.
Yeah. And you take the necessary precautions.
Yeah, so it's not about letting fear hold you back.
Exactly.
It's about being informed and empowered.
Totally.
And speaking of being prepared, both sources really highlighted the importance of planning ahead.
Yes.
But with, like, a twist.
Right.
They both talked about being flexible, especially in West Africa.
Yeah, the West African source used this great phrase, situations and attendus.
Unexpected situations.
Yeah, meaning, like, unexpected situations.
Right.
And they weren't just talking about, like, flight delays or weather changes.
Yeah.
They were talking about the importance of, like, really confirming details, especially in remote areas.
Yeah.
Because even with the best plans, things change.
Things change all the time.
Exactly. And they stress the importance of not relying solely on the internet.
Oh, that's interesting.
For information.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like accommodation or transportation schedules.
Okay.
Calling ahead, or even better, like, asking locals is often the most reliable way to get, like, up-to-date information.
That makes a lot of sense. And it seems like that situations inattendu's mindset applies to like packing too.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Like they really emphasize the importance of emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
Like having copies of important documents, backup communication, local emergency numbers. Like that can be a lifesaver, right?
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that you hope you never need.
Yeah.
But if you do, you're so grateful that you have it.
Right. Like peace of mind. Right.
Totally.
Well, I am starting to think that my meticulous packing list is going to come in very handy.
I'm sure it will.
You know, with all these practical tips, what really struck me was just like that consistent emphasis on the power of locals.
Yes.
It was like woven throughout all the sources.
It was.
Like the West African source put it so beautifully. They said, ask for advice and help. They know things tourists often miss.
I love that. It reminded me of this one time when I was in... Actually, you know what? That's a story for another time.
Oh, we got to save that one.
Yeah, we got to save it. But the point is, it's not just about safety. It's about enriching like your whole experience.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with people and experiencing the true heart of a place.
Right. Well, on that note, maybe we should take a pause here.
Okay.
And we'll pick up on all those other fascinating tips in part 2.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
All right. So before we get too lost in stories, let's circle back to a few more like practical tips.
Okay. Yeah.
I was really intrigued by the advice in the 18 South Africa's safety travel tips about handling money.
Okay.
It seems like South Africa is surprisingly card friendly.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, they made a point of saying that you can pretty much use like your debit or credit card almost everywhere.
Oh, that's a relief.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll still need some cash though, right?
Yeah.
Especially for those like smaller off the beaten path places.
Definitely. Yeah, but the key takeaway was really just to carry a small amount.
Okay.
Like just enough for tips, small purchases, or maybe for like markets and things where card machines might be unreliable.
Right.
It's always a good rule of thumb to minimize like the risk.
Yeah.
Especially in credit areas.
I tend to like overpack cash just in case, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
And speaking of being cautious, I noticed both sources really emphasized being mindful of your surroundings.
Yeah.
It's almost like this constant state of awareness.
It is. It is.
And it's more than just watching out for pickpockets, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about having that like broader awareness of your environment.
Yeah, okay.
And making smart choices based on your surroundings.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like for example, in both regions they stress the importance of avoiding walking alone at night.
Right.
Especially in unfamiliar areas.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like a basic precaution, but it can make a big difference.
Right. Okay, so that vigilance extends to driving too.
Yeah.
Especially in South Africa, I remember like the source even mentioned being aware of the risk of carjackings.
Yeah.
Which can be a problem in some areas. I mean, that's a bit unsettling, to be honest.
I understand.
Yeah.
And that's precisely why these sources are so valuable, you know?
Right.
They give you that like realistic perspective.
Yeah.
So you're not caught off guard.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Especially when it comes to safety.
For sure.
That is so true. And speaking of knowledge, you know, let's shift gears to something I'm personally fascinated by, wildlife.
Oh yeah.
You know, when most people think of Africa, they picture like those incredible safari experiences.
Yeah.
And both our sources had some really great tips on wildlife safety.
Yeah, and it all boils down to respect. You know,
Yeah.
respecting the animals, their habitats, and the guidelines set by experienced guides.
Right.
They stress the importance of maintaining a safe distance.
Yeah.
Following the instructions of your guide.
Right.
And never ever attempting to touch the animals.
Yeah, you would think that goes without saying.
Right, but you know, you'd be surprised how often those rules are overlooked.
Yeah, especially when everyone's like trying to get that perfect photo, you know.
Oh yeah, but safety should always come first.
Always.
It's about being a responsible observer.
Yeah.
not interfering with the natural world.
Right. And on the topic of respecting nature, let's not forget about those pesky mosquitoes.
Oh, yes, the mosquitoes.
Malaria is a serious concern in some parts of Africa, so taking precautions is really essential.
Yeah, for sure.
Both sources had like really detailed recommendations for preventing mosquito bites, right?
Yeah.
Using insect repellent diligently, wearing long sleeves and pants,
Yeah.
especially during like dawn and dusk.
Right.
And sleeping under mosquito nets,
Yeah.
particularly in malaria-prone areas.
It's all about like layering those protections. You know,
Right.
just to minimize the risk as much as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's always wise to consult your doctor about anti-malarial medication.
Oh, absolutely.
Before you travel. Prevention is key.
It really is.
Speaking of prevention, you've traveled extensively.
I have.
So you must have encountered your fair share of those unexpected situations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those are just inevitable
Right.
in any travel experience.
Right.
But as you gain experience, it becomes less about like being surprised
Okay.
and more about being adaptable.
Okay.
It's about having that like backup plan ready.
Right.
Copies of your passport and important documents, alternative communication methods.
Okay. Yeah.
A list of like emergency contact numbers. It
Yeah.
sounds like a checklist,
Yeah.
but it can really save the day.
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to see a pattern here, right?
Yeah.
It's all about being prepared, but also flexible enough to adjust when those inevitable like hiccups arise.
Exactly. And I always carry like a small notebook with like essential information, just in case my phone dies or I lose connectivity.
Right.
Old school. But it works.
It works.
And speaking of being prepared for the unexpected, one thing both sources really emphasized was travel insurance.
Travel insurance, right? It's essential for any trip.
Yeah, but even more so when you're venturing to a continent as vast and diverse as Africa.
Yeah.
It provides that crucial safety net,
Yeah.
covering medical emergencies, lost luggage,
Right.
flight cancellations, even those situations in Atendues we were talking about.
Exactly, those unexpected situations. Yeah, it's not just about protecting yourself financially.
Right.
It's about having that like peace of mind knowing that you're covered if things go sideways.
Totally.
And that allows you to focus on the experience,
Yeah.
not the what ifs.
Exactly. And travel isn't just about protecting ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's about traveling responsibly too.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I was really glad to see both sources touch on sustainable and ethical practices.
Yes, they both emphasized the importance of respecting the environment and supporting local communities.
Yeah.
It's about minimizing your impact, right?
Right.
And contributing positively to the places you visit.
It's about being a conscious traveler,
Yeah, and those little things like using reusable water bottles
Yeah.
instead of single-use plastics.
Right.
Being mindful of water usage, choosing accommodations that prioritize sustainability.
Totally. Yeah. And let's not forget the power of supporting local businesses.
Oh, that's a good one.
Choosing local restaurants, markets, craft shops.
Yeah.
It not only provides like a more authentic experience,
Right.
but it also like directly benefits the local economy.
It's a win-win.
Exactly. A win-win.
Okay, so we've talked about like physical safety, right?
Yeah.
But one of the sources brought up something that's increasingly relevant in on our digital world. Cybersecurity.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
This isn't something we typically associate with travel safety, right?
Right.
But it's becoming more and more crucial.
It really is, especially when we're like relying on public Wi-Fi networks and things like that, which can be vulnerable to security risks.
Oh yeah.
The source suggested using a VPN
Yeah.
to encrypt your data
Okay.
and protect your
Yeah.
online activity
Yeah.
when using public Wi-Fi, which is sound advice.
And just being mindful of what information we share online.
Right. Exactly.
Using strong passwords.
Yeah.
Being generally cautious about our digital footprint.
It's about applying the same level of awareness
Yeah.
to our digital lives
Right.
as we do to our physical surroundings.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so we've covered like physical safety, digital safety. Is there anything else we need to be mindful of?
Well, one of the sources touched upon a topic that's often overlooked, but incredibly important: cultural sensitivity.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's about recognizing that we're guests
Right.
in another culture, another way of life.
Yeah.
And that respect and understanding are paramount.
Right. So it's about being mindful of our actions and how they might be perceived, right?
Exactly.
In a different cultural context.
Totally.
And it starts with something as simple as dressing appropriately, right?
Yeah, particularly in more conservative regions.
Right.
They really emphasize that point, especially for women.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about sacrificing like personal style or anything.
Right.
It's about respecting local customs and avoiding like unwanted attention.
Right. So it's a way of like blending in.
Yeah.
And showing that you're making an effort to understand, appreciate their culture.
Totally.
Yeah.
And beyond clothing, it's about being mindful of our behavior,
Yeah.
our interactions, our communication style,
Right.
learning a few basic phrases
I like that.
in the local language, even just like simple greetings
Yeah.
and expressions of gratitude.
Yeah.
It can go a long way in building rapport and demonstrating respect.
It shows that you're not just like a passive observer, you know?
Right.
You're actively engaging
Exactly.
with the culture, with the people.
Totally.
And that just opens up so many more opportunities for meaningful connections.
Absolutely. And speaking of meaningful connections, one of the sources had like a dedicated section for solo female travelers, which I thought was really insightful.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they addressed the unique concerns that women often face when traveling alone, especially in a new environment.
Yeah.
What stood out to you from their advice?
Well, they reiterated the importance of being aware of your surroundings,
Right.
and trusting your gut instinct.
Yeah.
If a situation feels uncomfortable,
Right.
which is like a crucial safety measure for anyone, but particularly I think for women traveling solo.
Absolutely.
And taking like practical precautions, like
Yeah.
researching your accommodation carefully,
Right.
avoiding walking alone at night, being mindful of who you interact with.
Exactly. And they also recommended connecting with other female travelers, either online or in person.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great way to build a sense of community,
Right.
share tips and experiences,
Yeah.
and even like, you know, consider traveling together for added safety and companionship.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
Yeah.
It's about like empowering women to explore the world safely and confidently.
Totally.
And there was one more tip that I found particularly interesting.
What's it about?
They suggested carrying a personal alarm or a whistle.
Oh, yeah.
Such a small thing,
Right.
but it can have like a big impact.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's about being prepared for any situation and having that like extra layer of security.
It's about taking control of your safety, you know,
Yeah.
and not letting fear dictate your choices.
Right. It's empowering
It is.
to know that you have, you know, those tools at your disposal.
And it's about challenging those like outdated notions that women can't or shouldn't travel alone.
Yeah.
You know, it's a message of empowerment.
Yeah.
And a celebration of women's adventurous spirit.
Exactly. Women are just as adventurous, intrepid, curious as men.
Absolutely.
And they deserve to experience the world.
Yes.
With the same freedom and confidence.
For sure.
But as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive, I think it's important to emphasize that despite all these, you know, safety precautions and things we've been talking about, we shouldn't let fear overshadow the beauty and the adventure that awaits in Africa.
You're absolutely right. You know, it's about finding that balance between being informed and prepared,
Right.
and being open to the magic of the unknown.
And remembering that the vast majority of people that we'll encounter, you know, they're welcoming, kind, eager to share their culture with us.
Absolutely. Africa is a continent like brimming with warmth, with generosity,
Yeah.
and a spirit of adventure that's unlike anywhere else in the world.
So as we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's keep that spirit of adventure in mind. You know, it's funny, as we've been talking about all this practical advice, all these safety tips, it's got me thinking about the magic of travel. You know, those unexpected moments that you just can't plan for.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny how sometimes like the most vivid memories
Yeah,
come from those experiences that weren't in any guidebook.
totally.
It reminds me of this time I was on safari in Tanzania, and we'd been searching for lions all day, like no luck.
Mm.
And we were just about to like head back to camp feeling a bit disappointed. And
And I
then
bet this has a happy ending.
it does. Out of nowhere, we come across this whole pride of lions
Wow.
lounging under this acacia tree. They were so close we could hear them breathing.
Wow.
It was incredible. Just
Yeah.
just feeling so connected to the wildness of it all.
Yeah, that must have been breathtaking. And those are the moments that really stay with you, right?
Yes.
The ones you didn't anticipate.
Exactly. And it ties back to that West African concept of, situations inattended, those unexpected situations.
Right.
And it's not just about being prepared for things going wrong, but it's about being open to the unexpected beauty and wonder
Yeah, yeah.
that travel throws your way.
So while we've given you like a ton of practical advice and things to think about, it's important to remember that part of the joy of travel is letting go of the reins a little bit, right?
Right.
Being open to those serendipitous moments.
Africa's full of them.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm curious, thinking about all the things we've discussed, like what safety tip or piece of advice surprised you the most?
Honestly, I think it was that emphasis on cultural respect as a safety strategy,
Oh, yeah.
particularly in West Africa.
Yeah.
It's a perspective I hadn't really considered before,
Yeah.
How understanding and respecting those like subtle cultural cues can actually make you a less vulnerable traveler.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it highlights how it interconnected like safety and cultural understanding really are.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not just about following rules, it's about like connecting with people, fostering
Yeah.
like a sense of mutual respect.
Right, and that brings us back to what we said earlier about the power of locals.
Yeah.
They really hold the key to unlocking not only a safer journey,
Yeah.
but a richer, more meaningful one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're the ones who can guide you toward those hidden gems, those authentic experiences that you wouldn't find in any guidebook.
Exactly. So, listeners, as you embark on your African adventure,
Yeah.
remember to balance that meticulous planning
Mhm.
with an open heart and a willingness to embrace the unexpected.
Yeah.
Don't let safety concerns, overshadow the incredible beauty and warmth that this continent has to offer.
Do your research, be prepared, but most importantly, be present.
Yes.
Be curious.
Yeah.
And be open to the magic of Africa.
We hope this deep dive has given you the confidence and the inspiration to plan your own incredible journey. And remember, we're always here if you have any questions or want to share your own travel stories.
Yes, please do.
Happy travels.